If you felt different growing up, there's a reason you still feel slightly out of place today. Because feeling different as a child is often where a person's real life begins. While others were learning how to fit in, you were learning how to survive being misunderstood. Carl Jung believed this changes a person permanently. If you felt different growing up, there was probably a moment when you realized it without anyone ever saying it out loud. A moment when you looked around and sensed that you didn't quite fit into the room. Not in a dramatic way. Not necessarily in a painful way at first. But in a quiet, persistent way. You noticed that you thought differently. That certain things mattered to you more than to others. That you questioned what everyone else seemed to accept without hesitation. And over time, that feeling followed you. Carl Jung believed that this sense of being different is rarely random. According to him, it often points to a deeper psychological orientation, a specific relationship between the individual and the collective. Not everyone is meant to blend in seamlessly. Some people are born with a stronger connection to their inner world. Others are more attuned to meaning, symbolism, emotion, or intuition. And in environments that prioritize conformity, performance, or external validation, these traits can feel out of place. As children, we instinctively scan our surroundings to understand who we need to be in order to belong. We notice what is praised and what is ignored. What is encouraged and what is quietly discouraged. If your natural way of being didn't match what was rewarded, you likely adapted. You may have learned to stay quiet when you wanted to ask questions. To hide sensitivity behind humor. To downplay your depth so you wouldn't seem too much. Or to intellectualize your emotions because there was no space to feel them. Jung called this adaptation the persona, the social mask we develop to function in the world. The persona is not false. It is necessary. But problems arise when the persona becomes confused with the whole self. When too much of who you are remains hidden behind what you learned to be. If you felt different growing up, it may be because parts of you were never mirrored back. Never recognized. Never named. And what is not mirrored often feels unreal. Many people who felt different as children described similar experiences. Feeling older than their peers emotionally. Being drawn to solitude, books, imagination, or introspection. Sensing unspoken tension in rooms others seemed unaware of. Or feeling deeply affected by things that others brushed off easily. These traits are not flaws. From a Jungian perspective, they often indicate a personality oriented toward inner development. Jung believed that some individuals are naturally called toward the process of individuation earlier in life. Individuation is the lifelong process of becoming a whole, integrated self, not by conforming, but by consciously relating to one's inner world. For someone on this path, early life can feel alienating. Because the world tends to reward adaptation, not individuation. If you questioned authority, norms, or expectations, you may have been labeled difficult, sensitive, withdrawn, or strange. Not because you were wrong, but because you were oriented inward rather than outward. Children who feel different often become highly observant. They learn to read between the lines. They sense moods, inconsistencies, and emotional undercurrents. This sensitivity can feel overwhelming in environments that don't support it. So it often gets pushed inward. Over time, what you suppress becomes internal dialogue. You might have grown up feeling like you were always adjusting. Always translating yourself. Always holding something back. Jung observed that when a child's natural orientation is not supported, a split often occurs. Part of the self adapts to survive. Another part remains hidden, waiting. This hidden part does not disappear. It becomes part of the shadow. But unlike the shadow formed from socially unacceptable traits, this shadow often contains potential. Creativity, depth, insight, emotional intelligence, spiritual curiosity. You didn't feel different because something was missing. You felt different because something was present that had no place to land. This is why many people who felt different growing up later experience a sense of delayed identity. They may feel like they don't fully know who they are, even as adults. Not because they lack identity, but because so much of it was postponed. Often, these individuals excel in understanding others while struggling to understand themselves. They become listeners, observers, advisors. They intuitively sense what others need, while remaining disconnected from their own needs. This pattern can follow them into adulthood. Feeling out of sync in relationships. Choosing partners who don't fully see them. Feeling misunderstood even when loved. Or feeling like they are always adapting to others rather than being met as they are. From a Jungian perspective, this is not accidental. The psyche continues the work that began in childhood. Life presents situations that mirror what was unresolved. If you learn to hide your inner world, life may challenge you to express it. If you learn to suppress your difference, life may confront you with environments where blending in no longer works. This often happens during transitions. Adolescence. Early adulthood. Periods of loss or change. Moments when the old persona no longer fits, but the true self hasn't fully emerged yet. This in-between space can feel confusing and isolating. But Jung saw it as a necessary stage. He believed that feeling different is often the first signal of an individuation process trying to begin. The discomfort is not the problem. The avoidance of it is. Many people who felt different growing up develop a strong inner critic. A voice that questions their reactions, minimizes their needs, or compares them unfavorably to others. This voice often forms when external validation was inconsistent or conditional. Over time, the individual learns to doubt their inner experience. Yet Jung emphasized that psychological growth requires reclaiming trust in one's inner authority. This means slowly turning toward what was once pushed aside. Your questions, your sensitivity, your need for meaning, your discomfort with superficial answers. These qualities are not obstacles. They are signals. And they often mature later than external achievements. This is why many people who felt different early in life find their sense of belonging later. Sometimes much later. Not because they changed who they were, but because they stopped trying to be who they weren't. Jung believed that the self, the organizing center of the psyche, constantly works toward wholeness. Even when the conscious mind resists. If you felt different, your psyche may have been oriented toward depth rather than adaptation. Toward meaning rather than approval. And while this can make early life harder, it often leads to a richer inner life over time. The task then becomes integration. Learning to bring what was hidden into conscious expression. Allowing yourself to take up space without explanation. Letting your inner world inform your outer choices. This does not mean rejecting society or relationships. It means relating to them without self-erasure. Feeling different was not a mistake. It was an early sign that your path might not be linear, but it is meaningful. And as Jung would say, what was unconscious is now asking to be lived consciously. Another important aspect of feeling different growing up is how early responsibility often entered your inner world. Many people who felt different were not necessarily the loudest or the most visible children. They were the ones who noticed what others missed, who sensed emotional shifts in adults, who adapted quickly because they understood, even without words, what was expected of them. This kind of awareness often develops when a child learns that emotional stability is not guaranteed. Not always through trauma, but sometimes through subtle inconsistency. A parent who was emotionally preoccupied. An environment where feelings were present but not discussed. A household where appearances mattered more than inner states. In these situations, the child often becomes inwardly mature early. They learn to self-regulate, to observe before acting, to think before speaking. From the outside, this can look like intelligence, calmness, or independence. From the inside, it can feel like distance. Jung believed that when a child grows inwardly faster than their environment can meet them, a sense of isolation often forms. Not because the child is superior, but because they are oriented toward reflection rather than imitation. This orientation does not disappear with age. It shapes how the individual relates to life. As an adult, you may notice that you are rarely fully satisfied with surface-level explanations. You want to know why people behave the way they do. What motivates them? What they are avoiding. You may feel restless in environments that lack depth or emotional honesty. Conversations that stay on the surface can feel draining rather than neutral. And situations that others tolerate easily may quietly exhaust you. This is not because you are demanding. It is because your psyche is attuned to meaning. Jung described this as a difference in psychological orientation. Some people are primarily adapted to the outer world. Others are more connected to the inner. Neither is better. But conflict arises when one is expected to live as the other. If you felt different growing up, you may have spent years trying to override your natural orientation. Trying to be more social than you felt. More confident than you were ready to be. More practical than your inner world allowed. This effort often leads to a sense of quiet fatigue. Not burnout in the dramatic sense, but a low-grade exhaustion that comes from living slightly out of alignment. Many people in this position describe feeling like they are always translating themselves. Simplifying their thoughts. Holding back emotional nuance. Or minimizing their inner experiences to fit into conversations and expectations. Over time, this can create a feeling of invisibility. Not because others are intentionally overlooking you, but because you are rarely fully present as yourself. Jung would say that the psyche cannot remain divided indefinitely. What is suppressed seeks expression. This is why people who felt different often experience periods of emotional intensity later in life. Moments when feelings surface unexpectedly. When old questions return with urgency. When the familiar roles no longer feel tolerable. These moments can feel destabilizing, but they are also meaningful. They signal that the part of you that waited is ready to be lived. Another common experience among those who felt different is a complicated relationship with belonging. You may long for connection deeply, yet feel uncomfortable in groups. You may crave intimacy, yet struggle to feel fully seen. You may feel close to people emotionally, yet slightly separate at the same time. This paradox is not a failure of connection. It reflects an inner tension between individuality and attachment. Jung believed that true belonging does not come from similarity, but from authenticity. And authenticity requires differentiation. If you learned early on that being yourself risked misunderstanding or rejection, belonging may have felt conditional. Something to earn rather than something to rest in. This belief can follow you into adulthood. You may unconsciously adapt to others' expectations. Choose roles that feel safe. Or avoid situations where your inner world might be exposed. But over time, this strategy becomes limiting. The psyche begins to demand more space. This often shows up as dissatisfaction without a clear cause. A sense that something is missing, even when life looks fine on the surface. Or a growing intolerance for situations that once felt manageable. From a Jungian perspective, this is not ingratitude. It is the self calling for alignment. The feeling of being different was never meant to isolate you permanently. It was meant to orient you toward a life that allows for depth, for reflection, for inner truth. This does not mean withdrawing from the world. It means engaging with it differently, learning to honor your inner rhythm, choosing environments that support rather than overwhelm, allowing yourself to be selective without guilt. Integration does not require dramatic change. It often begins with subtle shifts. Speaking when you would normally stay silent. Pausing when you would normally push through. Allowing yourself to want what you want without justification. Jung believed that individuation is not about becoming special. It is about becoming whole. And wholeness includes the parts of you that once felt out of place. Feeling different growing up does not mean you were meant to remain on the margins. It means your path may involve more inner work before outer clarity. But that work is not wasted. It often leads to a grounded sense of self that is not dependent on approval. A capacity for empathy without self-sacrifice. And a depth of understanding that comes from having lived inside questions rather than answers. The task now is not to erase your difference. To allow what once set you apart to become what grounds you. As Jung would say, what you are meant to become is already present within you. It simply requires the courage to be lived consciously.
If this message resonated with you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe for more gentle reminders of your inner power.